Man, I tell you, I was mentally preparing myself for another depressing episode of the Locked On Kings podcast during that abysmal third quarter by the Sacramento Kings. But thanks to the Kentucky backcourt exploding in the fourth quarter, De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk going crazy, plus the needed trash talk energy from newest Sacramento King Jae Crowder, we can be happy again. The beam is lit, and you are listening to Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If that $5 bet wins, visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And man, it just feels good to be positive again. Now, a victory tonight for the Sacramento Kings does not mean everything is fixed, right? Because there were some more big problems by the Kings in this game. That third quarter was a nightmare and a continuation of a bad pattern for the Kings of going ice cold during a quarter and completely falling apart. But thankfully, thank God, De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk were able to overcome that tonight. In many ways, dragging the Sacramento Kings to this victory. Of course, we're going to break this down, but that fourth quarter by itself felt like 2022 again. And if you're on Kings Twitter, Sacramento Kings Twitter, if you follow Kings Twitter, you would have seen that there have been recently some recirculation of clips and highlights from 2022, when, in particular, the Sacramento Kings blew out the Brooklyn Nets on national television. At that time, Kevin Durant was still playing for the Nets, right? That was like the plant the flag in the soil game, if you will, for the Beam team that year, right? That was the arrival for that Kings team that, of course, went on to break the playoff drought and the dawning of the Beam and taking the Golden State Warriors to 7 games in that opening round playoff series, right? And so many people have gone back to that and are watching highlights and going, I miss this team. I miss this version of the Kings. The pace they were playing with, the energy, fast pace, the pounding on chest, the excitement, right? We saw that again. We got a glimpse of that again in this fourth quarter when the Sacramento Kings went from up 14 to down 12. And then they go crazy 34-18 in the fourth quarter to not only end this 4-game losing streak and get their 9th win of the season, they finally get a win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Kings and T-Wolves have met 3 times already this season. All 3 games have been close. Well, actually, this third game has been the widest margin of victory, I believe, out of any of them. The first game, we know how that went opening night. The 60-point De'Aaron Fox performance when the Kings lost to the T-Wolves in overtime as one of their NBA in-season tournament or NBA Cup games. The Kings finally get a win. Lo and behold, this team on the road, man, I don't know what it is about this team on the road away from the Golden One Center, because if they had a fourth quarter like that inside the Golden One Center, imagine how crazy that place would be going. Maybe this Kings team just likes to turn gyms into libraries, right? Because they silenced that Minnesota crowd in the Target Center tonight. But it was all led by the Kentucky boys, right? That Kentucky backcourt, the Kentucky connection, Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox. In the fourth quarter, Monk had 11 points on 4 of 4 shooting from the field, 2 of 2 from three-point range, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal. For the game, he had 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists. Do you think the Sacramento Kings missed Malik Monk? This is just his second game back from his ankle injury that held him out, I think, 7 games is what he ended up missing. Yeah, the Kings missed Malik Monk off of their bench and the Energizer Bunny that he is. Then De'Aaron Fox in the fourth quarter, 9 points, 3 of 4 shooting from the field, also a perfect 2 of 2 from three-point range, 3 rebounds and 1 assist. For the game, Fox had 26 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals. So both Fox and Monk not just getting it done scoring, but getting it done distributing and on the glass as well. The Kings were staring their recent nightmare right in the face. Like I was listening to the pregame show on the Kings radio side, and it always features a conversation between Gary Gerald, the Kings radio broadcaster, and some Kings coach, some Kings assistant coach. And during that conversation, they were talking about adversity, right? And this is a word that Mike Brown has used a lot. I think Mike Brown talked about this pregame too. This team is facing adversity right now. The stretch that they're in, the way they've been playing, the way that they've been losing, this is adversity. And the Kings knew that they were going to face adversity at times during the NBA season because it happens to everybody. I just don't think they were expecting it to be this steep and this difficult this early in the season. But here they are with that third quarter, staring their adversity right in the face, right? It was getting to a point where I was already jotting down notes, and one of my top notes was, I don't know what the fix is. I don't know what this team can do. Because they had an excellent second quarter, which I'm going to talk about later on the podcast. This excellent second quarter, and then the third quarter, it completely falls apart. They only scored 12 points. They blew a 14-point lead. They once again go ice cold from three-point land. In the second half, they shot 6 of 21. All 6 of those threes were in the fourth quarter because they made 0 threes during that terrible third quarter. So they're staring their demon right in the face. Once again, the offense falls apart. Their big lead is gone, and Minnesota has all the momentum on the road, and Minnesota has already beaten you twice. They're looking at their nightmare. And De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk said, F this. We're taking over. We're doing it ourselves. We're not letting this happen again. Right? That's in many ways what this Kings team needs from those guys, especially when things are looking bleak. We know how much of a hero De'Aaron Fox has been in crunch time for Sacramento over the last handful of seasons. But for Fox and Monk to channel that Kentucky backcourt energy that they had from their time together that 1 year in college, to bring that here to Sacramento, which they've done a number of times at different stretches of the game. But for them to come together during this fourth quarter and just straight up say, we're not losing this game. We're not going to let us lose. We've had enough of this crap. We're going to do it ourselves. And I thought it was interesting, too, that it was the two of them because after the most recent loss that the Kings suffered at the hands of the Oklahoma City Thunder, in the locker room, Malik talked about this being more of a veteran team this year and that he was going to speak up and Fox was going to speak up and different team leaders were going to speak up. Well, how about that leading by example? We know Malik and Fox can talk, but they're walking the walk tonight with the effort that they put together in that fourth quarter, not allowing Sacramento to lose this game. They win the Kings in the fourth quarter. This stat from Brendan Nunez from Sacktown Sports. A 29-6 run in the fourth quarter, and Fox or Monk scored or assisted on all but one bucket during that run. They took over. They refused to lose. They put the Kings on their back, and they carried them to this victory. But I do want to give an honorable mention, too, to Domantas Sabonis. Because typically in these fourth quarters, Domas takes more of a supportive role. And Domas has said it before to us. He goes up to De'Aaron Fox in these moments in these games and goes, where do you want me? Right? Domas might be in attack mode in the first 3 quarters, and he was very much in attack mode in the first half of this game. But during the fourth quarter, Domas typically kind of takes a back seat. Not that he evaporates or disappears, but he more tries to support and get Fox the ball where Fox wants it, or Malik the ball when Malik wants it, or set screens or whatever. Like that, Domas likes to play that role down the stretch when he's got his main clutch guys that are rolling. But Domas picked up his 5th foul, like midway through that third quarter, when things just completely unraveled because Domas was on the bench. The Kings turned to like Alex Len and Isaac Jones and really struggled, and everything was going wrong for Sacramento. So he has 5 fouls, right? We know Domas is a physical basketball player, especially when he plays against Rudy Gobert. Domas comes back in the fourth quarter, plays 10 minutes of the fourth quarter without fouling out. And during those 10 minutes, he scores 7 points on a perfect 3 of 3 shooting from the field, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. Like that is clutch in its own right from your starting center. We know there is no replacing Domantas Sabonis for this Kings team. We know how important Domantas Sabonis is to the success of the Sacramento Kings. And even if Fox and Monk are cooking, they need a Sabonis out there to run through, play around, and play through in order to have their success. And Domas comes back in foul trouble, doesn't change the way he plays, right? He continues to play physical when he needs to, attacks the glass, attacks the basket, knocks down a big three at a point in that fourth quarter too. Doesn't foul out of the game, stays in there, and the Kings win this game. I think Domas deserves a lot of attention and credit for that. It's going to be overshadowed and brushed under the rug a little bit because of how good Fox and Monk were in that fourth quarter, but Domas deserves a lot of credit and a lot of love for how he played in that fourth quarter. For the game, he tied Malik Monk for the leading scorer of the Kings. 27 points, 10 of 17 from the field, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal. I'm telling you, Domantas Sabonis loves to play against Rudy Gobert. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, the Stifle Tower. Rudy Gobert is an intimidating presence in the paint. Domas does not care. Domas takes it as a challenge every time he takes on Gobert. He goes right into Rudy. And there were a couple times where he got called for offensive fouls because he put a shoulder into Rudy. There were also a couple times where he put a shoulder into Rudy, and Rudy was knocked back like 3 or 4 steps. And that's not easy to do with that big of a man. And Sabonis ended up making him pay for it with a bucket at the rim. Domas loves playing against Rudy Gobert, and he was huge for the Kings all night tonight, not just in that fourth quarter. But you know who was huge for the Sacramento Kings? Jae freaking Crowder. Welcome to Sacramento, Jae freaking Crowder. Jae Crowder and that trash talk energy that he brought tonight, inject that into my veins. Give that to let that infect the locker room. And I use infect in a positive way. Let that infect the Golden One Center. That energy is what this Sacramento Kings team needs more of. And I don't mean this in a bad, well, it kind of does sound negative the way I'm going to put it, but it's not bad that this Kings locker room is filled with really nice, really respectful, really good guys, right? And I know Malik likes to talk his trash and have fun, but Malik is a great guy and always has kind of a goofy attitude about things. De'Aaron Fox will talk trash on the floor, but De'Aaron Fox is a family man, a great guy. Jae Crowder brings a new dynamic to this Kings team. Jae Crowder brings this attitude of, man, I just joined this team. I literally wasn't cleared to participate in shoot-around, just got my jersey with the number 99 on it, was immediately thrown into the starting lineup, which was the right call by Mike Brown, by the way. I'm going to help the Kings break this streak. I'm going to knock down a couple of big shots, including a buzzer-beater 3 at the end of the first quarter and a big 3 to ice the game in the fourth quarter. And I'm going to talk to fans. I'm going to be talking crap to Julius Randle the entire game. I'm going to be chirping at the T-Wolves bench. The Kings need that energy. They need more of it. I'm not saying that the Kings need to go full-on villains and be jerks and get technical fouls for talking too much and start shoving and pushing and stuff like that. They don't need to go that far. They don't need to be dirty or anything like that. But this Kings team needs a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And I thought the energy that Jae Crowder brought and that he brings to this Kings team is more important than anything else on the basketball floor that he can provide. He's a veteran. He knows how to win. He's been to the playoffs 11 out of 12 seasons of his career. So he knows what it takes to be victorious and to be on a good basketball team. Of course, he can play defense. He can space the floor. He went 2 of 4 from three-point range. 50% from 3 is a very welcome sight from Jae Crowder, considering how many Kings players still are struggling to shoot the three-pointer. But beyond all that, Jae coming onto the floor, talking some smack, having his guys back, and being that kind of vocal and physical leader and bringing that kind of energy to this Kings team and locker room. Like I said, inject it into my veins. You love to see it. I'm realistic about my expectations from Jae Crowder. Like, I don't expect he's going to be a massive game changer for the Kings. But what Jae brings, just in his attitude that we saw tonight, the Kings need that every single night. The Kings need that energy every single night. And it's infectious, too, because we know Fox likes to talk some trash. There was a moment where Fox shushed either a fan or the Timberwolves bench after hitting a big 3 in the fourth quarter. We know Malik Monk loves to talk, right? But if the Kings can get kind of some of that chippiness to them and some of that, like, adversity to them, man, that's the biggest gift that Jae Crowder could bring the Sacramento Kings this holiday season. Still so much more to talk about. I want to talk about the second quarter. I really like the second quarter by the Kings. And Isaac Jones impressed the hell out of me tonight. Another two-way player making the most of his opportunity here in Sacramento. Going to talk about all that. Yes, we do have to talk about Kevin Huerter too. That's all still to come here on Locked On Kings. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to bet on the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, all of it, college sports, everything, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and more on the exact same page where you place your bets. All that information right there for you. So visit FanDuel.com and join today. Again, when you sign up and get started, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So take that $5 and put it on the easiest, most sure bet that you can find. Even if it's a little payout for winning that bet, $150 in bonus bets right there, then you can really have some fun on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. One of the reasons why I was so depressed when watching that third quarter and thinking about what I thought this Locked On Kings podcast tonight was going to be at that time was because I really liked the second quarter. And if it wasn't for that fourth quarter explosion that the Kings had, I would have started this podcast and spent a good portion of time on this podcast early on talking about that second quarter because I really liked it for the Kings. They scored 38 points in that second quarter with only 4 made threes. Now, they also held the T-Wolves in the 20s. I don't remember exactly what the number was. I didn't write it down. But the Kings went 4 of 12 from three-point range in the quarter. That alone, 33%, not good. Right? We know this. But this is kind of who this Kings team is showing us that they are. I think we all believe, law of averages, the Kings will eventually start to wake up from three-point range and shoot better. Right? But I don't think there's going to be a point this season, unless a massive turnaround happens or some personnel changes happen. I don't think there's going to be a point where the Sacramento Kings can be classified as a good three-point shooting team. They have to prove that at this point because that to me, that ship has sailed. They're shooting so consistently bad, even going back to the preseason, that as of now, that's just who this team is. They're showing us who they are, so we have to believe them. So they have this second quarter where they score 38 points, only 4 made threes. They continue to shoot terrible from three-point range, but they shot 52% from the field as a team, right? They were attacking the rim, getting to the paint. Their pick and roll play in that second quarter, I thought, was fantastic. They were being aggressive, initiating contact, getting the T-Wolves in foul trouble. The Kings were at the free throw line, got the T-Wolves in the penalty with still like 6 minutes to go. They got key defensive members of the T-Wolves in foul trouble, right? Sacramento, I thought, was just really disciplined with their attack. And it's not that they were refusing to shoot the three, because it's a Mike Brown philosophy of if you have an open shot, take it, because you're more than likely not going to get a better one. So the Kings still took 12 threes. The vast majority of them, great, wide open looks. They just weren't dropping. How it's been the entire season, right? But Sacramento was making it their mission to not live or die by the three-point shot the way that we've seen earlier on this season. Right? The volume was lower intentionally because the Kings were finding other ways to be effective, other ways to score. And as great as the fourth quarter was for De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk, they were also really, really good in the second quarter. Fox had 14 points in the second quarter. Malik Monk had 7 points in the second quarter. Malik's two-man game with Domantas Sabonis was amazing in the second quarter. Sabonis had 8 points in that quarter. And the Kings took care of the basketball. They only turned the ball over 2 times during that second quarter. I thought that quarter, half-court offense-wise, I thought that quarter was one of their best of the season. It just was really clean, really solid. And thankfully, it wasn't a waste because they built up a 14-point lead. The first quarter was pretty back and forth. The T-Wolves pretty much in control. I think the T-Wolves had 7 made threes in the first quarter, 6 or 7. They were hitting a lot of threes early on in this game. What else is new? The Kings kept it close, hung around. Then they have this great second quarter that they pretty much dominated to build this double-digit lead. Boom, it's gone like that in the third quarter. Then we know what happened in the fourth. But as this team is constructed right now, the way this roster is, this is the winning condition for the Sacramento Kings. The winning condition, that's like a term that you hear gamers use, or a term that you, like if you're playing a strategy game. What's my win con? What's my winning condition? What do I need to accomplish in order to secure a victory? To me, the winning condition for the Sacramento Kings is completely tied in their top 4 guys. Fox, Monk, DeRozan, Sabonis. All 4 of them, or a combination of the 4 of them, at least 2, most likely 3 of them, have to play really, really well for the Sacramento Kings to win basketball games. Everybody else around them, from Keegan to Kevin to Keon to Trey Lyles when he comes back to Jae Crowder, everybody else around them, they have to be consistent in their roles. And that's been a problem too. They've been pretty inconsistent in their roles. But those guys just need to consistently fill their roles on this team. And maybe that sounds like a step back for Keegan Murray, and it kind of is. We were hoping for more from Keegan, and maybe he can work his way back into that top 4 conversation again later on in the season if that shot starts falling. But as it stands right now, Keegan Murray's role on this team is to play good defense, grab rebounds, and then hopefully score in the mid to low teens. If you can get into the high teens to 20s, fantastic. But the mid to low teens on a nightly basis, on a regular basis for Sacramento, that's Keegan Murray's role at this point in time. Outside of that, your top 4 are going to have to carry you. Your top 4 are going to have to lead you to victory on a nightly basis as this team is constructed right now. That's the only win condition that makes sense for the Sacramento Kings. But speaking of playing your roles and executing your roles, Isaac Jones. How good was Isaac Jones tonight? A two-way player, right? He's a rookie, first year in the league. This is not the first time this early season that he's given the Kings some solid minutes. But I was really impressed by Isaac Jones, who he's getting his opportunity, right? This is his Keon Ellis opportunity. Trey Lyles is out. The Kings have little to no depth at that position. Jae Crowder helps a little bit. But Trey Lyles is out. The Kings need another body. Isaac Jones, you're a two-way guy. This is why we have you on a two-way contract. You have a certain amount of days and games you can suit up for us. We're using them now. We need you now. And Isaac Jones is attacking the game. And I use that intentionally. He is attacking this opportunity. He had 8 points, 4 of 7 shooting from the field, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, no turnovers in 21 minutes. You know, the only player off of the bench that played more than Isaac Jones tonight was Malik Monk. That's awesome. He got big opportunity off the bench immediately, and he was responsible for one of the best bench games, if not, honestly, the best bench game that the Kings have had so far this season. Now, I know a lot of that falls on Malik Monk being back and Malik playing as well as he did, but I thought Isaac Jones was fantastic in his 21 minutes. And again, I say he attacked this opportunity. He was fearless, right? He comes into the game. Immediately defensively, he's trying to guard Julius Randle. I thought he did a pretty good job making Julius Randle work. And then on the offensive end, he's going and scoring over Rudy Gobert. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, standing right in front of you. Isaac Jones like, all right, I'll go into your chest and I'll score over the top of you. He did that a number of times. Out-rebounded Rudy Gobert a number of times. He pulled down an offensive rebound one-handed from 3, or he pulled it away from 3 different Timberwolves. He should have gotten a foul call afterwards. It was knocked out of bounds and remained Kings ball. But look, he's strong, he's athletic, and what I love about the way he plays, and this is going to sound like an insult, and I promise you it's not, and I'll break it down for you. He's not thinking, he's just hooping. And that's not to say that he's not smart. But you see a lot of players come into the game and the game's too fast for them, right? You see a lot of players come into the game and they're like, okay, I'm supposed to execute. Oh, Mike wants me here. And then on defense, I'm supposed to go here. I'm supposed to look for Fox over there. And then I get blown by. Oh, God, I'm lost. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm doing. The NBA game is too fast for me. Isaac Jones came in and just said, all right, I'm athletic. I'm big. See ball, get ball. See ball, score. Pick and roll, finish at the rim. I'm going. He just played basketball. And with his size and his athleticism and how much the Kings need that, he got his opportunity and he made the most of it. I was very, very happy with what I saw from Isaac Jones in this game. And the Kings dominated in the trenches in 3, we call these like the key swing stats, right? That's why if you print out an official NBA box score, at the bottom, you'll always see these 3 stats listed back to back to back. And the Kings dominated all 3 of them. Points in the paint. Kings dominated Minnesota 64-36. Second chance points, Kings dominated 18-5. Fast break points, Kings dominated 18-9. When the Kings dominate those categories, they damn well better win a basketball game. And thank goodness they did. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Skylight Frames. Now, if you're like me, you love the holiday season, but gift giving is difficult, right? I'll raise my hand. I have no problem saying it. I suck at giving gifts, especially for those people that are hard to please or difficult to buy gifts for, not necessarily just because they're ungrateful or anything like that, but maybe you just don't know enough about them, or you don't necessarily know what they like, or they just go out and get what they already want for themselves, so you can't buy it for them. That's why Skylight Frames have quite literally saved me this holiday season. I've already bought 3 different Skylight Frames that I'm giving to 3 different family members. They're all on my wife's side of the family, by the way. It's the perfect gift. Skylight Frames, it's the touchscreen digital photo frame that your whole family can use and will love. You upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's super easy to use and set up. It takes literally 60 seconds, honestly, even less. You can invite your friends and family to easily share photos from afar. So let's say you give a frame to like your mom, in the case the grandmother of my son, right? And I can send photos to her frame via email at any time. So the latest pictures that I take are appearing. She doesn't even know they're coming. She'll just look at her Skylight frame and boom, there it is in her house. You can add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. Their touchscreen is a game changer. It looks absolutely beautiful in your home. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. We've seen some of those digital frames, right? It's just like, it looks like this kind of just like an iPad on your wall or iPad sitting up on your drawer or dresser. That is not what a Skylight Frames looks like. And now, as a special limited time offer for Locked On Kings listeners, you can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/lockedonnba. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NBA. Again, $20 off skylightframe.com/NBA. All right, let's do it. Let's talk about Kevin Huerter. Now, apparently, I was a bad guy 2 episodes ago after the Oklahoma City Thunder game for having Kevin's back. And I still do think, and I'll preface this and I have no problem saying this, I still do think some of y'all are allowing recency bias of how Kevin Huerter's been playing to cloud your judgment of him and fuel kind of the fire of your frustrations. Some of y'all have really weird energy tweeting me or messaging me while this game is going on, while Kevin Huerter is struggling, having victory laps about you being right about how bad the guy has been playing, rather than hoping that he plays better, because if Kevin Huerter plays better, the Sacramento Kings are a better basketball team. So some of y'all got some really weird energy with that, and I have no problem saying that. It's really strange that you'd rather be right than have a basketball player, an important basketball player on your team, play well. I do think that outside of the recent stretch of games, Kevin Huerter has played well and has been impressive at times over the course of this season. And I think what's impressed me the most about Kevin is, even though his three-point shot has been struggling, he's been doing well in other areas, making an impact in other areas. That being said, the three-point shot is really bad right now, to the point where, statistically, Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray are both among the 20 worst shooters, especially catch-and-shoot shooters, in the league right now. They're both in a pretty significant slump, and both of them are considered to be top 3, top 4 three-point shooters on this Kings roster, maybe even top 2, depending upon who you're talking to, or at least that's what they're supposed to be. They're not. They're struggling. But look, even if I am a believer in Kevin Huerter, even if I outwardly and intentionally am rooting for Kevin Huerter to work through this stretch because I believe in Kevin Huerter still, Kevin Huerter was bad tonight. And Kevin Huerter has not made any kind of impact over these 2 games since coming onto the bench. We asked the question coming into this year when it was a debate whether or not Keon Ellis was going to get the starting job or not, what does Kevin Huerter look like with the second unit? Can it work? Right now, the answer is no. I would argue, though, that nothing's working for Kevin no matter where he plays or what role he plays in. Kevin Huerter, once again, is just going through this slump where he's not hitting shots. He's forcing things. He's making bad decisions. He looks flustered. He looks in his own head. Kevin Huerter was just bad. He wasn't part of that fourth quarter push at all by design. Mike Brown yanked him, pulled him out, didn't put him back in because he was playing that poorly during that third quarter stretch. In this game, Kevin Huerter, 3 points, 1 of 6 from the field, 1 of 5 from three-point range, turned the ball over 3 times. It wasn't good. Again, I have no problem saying it. I don't care being wrong. I don't. Because we should all prefer that I'm right, or we should all prefer, screw me, we should all prefer that Kevin Huerter gets right. Because as we saw in 2022 and 2023, when he's on and when he's shooting the ball as well as we know he's capable of shooting the ball, he can be like he's a game changer for the Sacramento Kings. The reality is he hasn't been that. And he really hasn't been that for the majority of this season. You're right. And I'll point that out. That's fine. So we might be, I'm not saying this is where we're at, we might be back on a fast track to a breakup between the Kings and Kevin Huerter. It might need to happen. Whether it's at the trade deadline, before the trade deadline, right? Like Kevin Huerter has always made sense as one of the guys that the Kings would be potentially shopping around at the deadline to hopefully bring in some reinforcements for this Kings team. They're not going to trade Kevin Huerter for something worse. They're not going to just sell him or dump him or get rid of him for a second-round draft pick. They're not going to do that because he's too valuable and he's on a good contract. But maybe the writing is on the wall. Maybe Kevin Huerter just does not fit with where the Sacramento Kings are going. If that's the case, so be it. And I hope Monte McNair makes the right decision and makes the right move and uses Kevin the correct way to go out and get this team the help that they need. But while Kevin Huerter's here, I will believe that he can be an impactful, effective piece of what Sacramento is trying to do. And hopefully he can figure out that, because I think it's staying. I don't think Kevin Huerter's getting back into the starting lineup. I just don't see it happening. So at least if he starts shooting lights out from three-point range, maybe he can win it back. But Keon Ellis has been playing solid. Like, hopefully Kevin can find out how to be an effective volume scorer off of the bench for Sacramento. Because right now, it doesn't look like he knows how to be effective, period, during this stretch. And it's really a bummer. But it's also not surprising that while Kevin Huerter is struggling, the Sacramento Kings have been struggling. Because Kevin plays that important of a part of towards the success of this Kings team. Speaking of starting lineups, though, I do have an interesting starting lineup change to consider. DeMar DeRozan didn't play tonight. He's not with the team right now. He's still dealing with his lower back inflammation. So we have no idea if he's going to play in Portland on the day after Thanksgiving, on Black Friday, or if he's just going to stay here in Sacramento or wherever he's getting treatment and then rejoin the Kings when they come back home and start a new homestand here in just a little bit. When DeMar DeRozan does come back, do you think there's any merit to a starting lineup of Fox at the 1, DeRozan at the 2, a combination of Keegan and Crowder at the 3 and 4? Really, it's interchangeable. It doesn't really matter. But maybe Keegan's the 3, Crowder's the 4, vice versa. It doesn't matter. And then Sabonis at the 5. But your starting 5 changes to Fox, DeRozan, Crowder, Murray, Sabonis. It's not to say anything bad or ill about Keon Ellis and the way Keon Ellis is playing. In fact, the biggest con about this starting lineup is the fact that Keon Ellis moves out of it. Because Keon, we know defensively what he does out of the gate for Sacramento, kind of establishing themselves defensively, typically guarding the opposing team's best guard right away if Keegan Murray's not taking that responsibility. Plus, Keon is statistically by far the best shooter on this Kings team so far this season. He's averaging 44% from three-point range on 3 attempts per game. So Keon's actually hitting threes. So that's nice. And I think Keon's played fine, great. Well, maybe not great. He's played good over these 2 games that he started for Sacramento. But the pros of moving him out and moving Crowder in and DeRozan over to the 2 is that this lineup is bigger. I think it's tougher. I think it matches up better overall on the perimeter. I think this is a lineup that could potentially boost your overall perimeter defense because of the size that you gain by Crowder out there instead of Keon, while also I don't think there would be any kind of spacing drop-off like if DeRozan was playing at the 3, like we've seen with those lineups early on this season. Personally, I think it's good to consider. Maybe Mike doesn't feel comfortable making that change right away because Crowder is still so new to this Kings team. Maybe Mike doesn't feel comfortable demoting Keon Ellis or taking Keon Ellis out with how well Keon Ellis has been playing for Sacramento and how, for the most part, solid the Kings starting lineup is with Keon Ellis in it. I do think it's an interesting lineup. I think it's one to be considered. In fact, one that maybe we should discuss. So if you have thoughts on that lineup, thoughts on the Kentucky backcourt in their fourth quarter, Domantas Sabonis, Kevin Huerter, Jae Crowder's energy, any of it, you want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. Hit me up on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. It's great to see a beam lit. It's great to do a positive, winning Locked On Kings podcast. Now we get to go into Thanksgiving with a smile on our faces, and hopefully the day after Thanksgiving, the Kings can not be too hungover from all the turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy they're going to be consuming, and be ready to go against the Trailblazers team that the Kings absolutely should beat, have beaten before. But as we saw last year on the day after Christmas, Portland has no problem taking advantage of you being a little laggy or a little slow or lackluster after a holiday. Portland beat Sacramento in Portland on December 26th last year. So hopefully they can right that wrong on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and we can have another positive Locked On Kings podcast. Until then, my name is Matt George. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.